Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever noticed that the harder you chase something or someone, the faster it seems to run away? It's as if desperation acts like a repellent, while confidence and certainty act like a magnet. The truth is, chasing comes from scarcity. It comes from this quiet belief that if I don't run after this opportunity, this relationship, this person, I'll miss my chance. But attraction doesn't come from scarcity. Attraction is born in abundance. It's born in the unshakable knowledge that you are valuable, that you bring something incredible to the table, and that the right people will recognize it. Before you even open your mouth, your energy speaks. When you radiate joy, passion, and certainty, you don't need to beg for attention. It comes to you. Think about it. The most magnetic people you know aren't the ones chasing approval. They're the ones living with purpose, moving with confidence, and setting boundaries that say, this is who I am, and this is what I deserve. A chasing is rooted in seeking validation. But here's the secret: the moment you stop needing external validation, you become magnetic, because people can feel the difference between, I need you to like me, and I'd love for you to join me, but I'll be amazing with or without you. And boundaries, they're not walls, they're invitations. When you know your worth, else will come along. When you operate from scarcity, everything feels urgent. You convince yourself that you have to prove your worth to be chosen, so you begin running after things that were never running towards you in the first place. The energy of chasing is desperate, and desperation is heavy. People can feel it. It doesn't invite them in, it pushes them away. On the other hand, attraction grows from abundance. Abundance is the belief that there will always be more chances, more opportunities, more connections, more doors to open. When you live in abundance, you know that missing out on one thing doesn't mean you've lost everything. It simply means it wasn't the right fit. That mindset changes the way you show up. Instead of clinging to what you fear you might lose, you radiate calm certainty that more is on the way. That energy feels light, confident, magnetic. People are drawn to it because it's rare and refreshing. Think about how this plays out in relationships. Someone who chases is constantly sending messages, constantly asking, where do I stand? Do you like me? Are we good? They want reassurance because they're operating from scarcity, the fear that the other person might leave, and then they'll be alone. But what does that do? It creates pressure. The other person feels smothered instead of inspired. Now flip the script. Someone who operates from abundance doesn't need to ask every 5 minutes where they stand. They show up fully, they give generously, but they don't cling. They know that if this person isn't right for them, it's not the end, it's just part of the journey. That makes them more attractive because it's not rooted in fear, it's rooted in choice. It's the same in careers. Chasing looks like begging for opportunities, sending out desperate messages to every potential employer, saying yes to anything because you're scared nothing else will come. That energy doesn't inspire confidence. But attraction in the professional world looks like building your skills, refining your value, and showing up in a way that makes people say, we want that person on our team. You're not chasing the company is competing for you. The difference is night and day, and it all comes back to mindset. Scarcity makes you believe there's only one door, and if you don't run fast enough, someone else will grab it before you. Abundance reminds you there are endless doors, and the right ones will open when you're ready. It takes the pressure off. You stop rushing. You stop begging. You stop gripping so tightly that you suffocate the very thing you want. And the irony is, when you stop chasing, you become more attractive. People want to be around someone who is grounded in abundance because it makes them feel safe, seen, and inspired. This doesn't mean you stop putting effort in. It doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing, expecting everything to magically fall in your lap. Attraction isn't about laziness. It's about alignment. You still show up, but you show up from a place of confidence and choice, not desperation and fear. You make moves not because you're terrified of losing, but because you're excited to grow. That subtle shift is everything. Scarcity whispers, if I don't have this, I'll never be happy. Abundance says, I am already enough, and whatever or whoever adds to my life is a bonus. When you live in that truth, chasing becomes unnecessary. You're no longer hunting for scraps, you're allowing the best to flow towards you. People sense it. Opportunities respond to it. And your life begins to look very different, not because you're doing more, but because you're being more. Before a single word leaves your lips, people have already made a decision about instantly sense tension even before anyone spoke, or a time you met someone who instantly felt magnetic even though they hadn't said a word. That's energy. It's not mystical. It's deeply human. Our brains are attuned to micro expressions, subtle shifts in tone, and the emotional state someone carries. And that emotional state tells the truth more than their words ever could. When you carry yourself with grounded confidence, you're sending out a signal. I'm comfortable with who I am, and I don't need to prove myself to you. That signal is irresistible because so many people are walking around with the opposite energy. They're tense, they're overthinking, they're trying too hard to impress. The energy of trying too hard creates distance. The energy of ease creates attraction. This doesn't mean arrogance. True magnetic energy isn't about puffing up your chest and declaring how amazing you are. It's about a quiet assurance that you belong. People feel safe around that energy. They feel inspired by it. They want to be near it because it lifts them up instead of pulling them down. That's why some people enter a room and instantly command attention. Not because they're the loudest, but because their energy is centered, certain, and vibrant. Think about conversations. You can tell someone is nervous when they're laughing too much, talking too quickly, or filling every silence. That energy makes the other person feel the nerves too. Now compare that to someone who is comfortable with pauses, someone who looks you in the eye, someone who doesn't rush. Their energy makes you feel calm. It makes you want to listen. That's attraction at work. The actual words matter far less than the energy behind them. Energy is also contagious. If you're excited about your life, if you're passionate about what you're doing, people feel that spark. You don't even have to sell yourself. They want to be around you because your energy lights them up. But if you're constantly complaining, apologizing for yourself, or shrinking, people feel drained. Attraction is less about the clever lines you say and more about the state you live in. Your emotional energy leaks into every interaction. This principle shows up in dating, friendships, careers, and even daily encounters. A job interview isn't just about your resume. It's about whether your energy makes the interviewer believe you belong in that role. A date isn't just about what you say. It's about how the other person feels when they're around you. Do they feel uplifted, intrigued, drawn in? Or do they feel pressure, tension, or neediness? The beauty is, energy is something you can cultivate. It starts with how you treat yourself. If you spend your days criticizing yourself, carrying shame, or doubting your worth, that energy will seep into how you show up. If you live with self-respect, gratitude, and passion, that energy will shine through without you forcing it. People can't help but respond. Attraction is not something you chase with words, it's something you radiate with presence. What people remember most about you is rarely the exact sentences you said. It's how you made them feel. And how you make them feel comes from your energy. The words are the surface, but energy is the substance. When your energy is aligned with confidence, joy, and certainty, people will lean in before you've even spoken. Energy speaks before words, and that truth shapes every human interaction more than we often realize. Long before anyone processes the details of what you say, they've already felt something about you. They've taken in your body language, your facial expressions, your tone of voice, the way you occupy space, and the emotions you carry into the moment. This is why two people try harder, but their energy communicates neediness, and neediness repels more often than it attracts. Humans are wired to pick up on nonverbal cues faster than we process language. You can see this in subtle ways every day. Think about the difference between someone who avoids eye contact, fidgets, and rushes their words versus someone who speaks slowly, maintains steady eye contact, and seems comfortable in silence. The words could be identical, but the second person leaves you feeling more drawn in because their energy communicates calm confidence. We don't consciously analyze all of this, but we feel it, and it shapes how much we want to connect with someone. There's also an emotional quality to energy. If you're excited about your life, engaged in your passions, and radiating joy, people want to be near you. They don't need to know all the details of why you're happy. They just feel better when they're around you. Your energy elevates them. On the other hand, if you carry constant self-doubt, frustration, or bitterness, that heaviness transfers too. People might sympathize, but they won't feel magnetized. Attraction thrives where there is vitality, not depletion. Consider a first date. You could prepare clever stories, memorize conversation topics, even plan flattering compliments. But if your energy is tense, if you're secretly waiting for approval, the other person will feel that. They may not articulate it, but they'll leave thinking something felt off. Now imagine you come into the same date with ease, enjoying the moment, comfortable with yourself regardless of the outcome. You don't need the other person to validate you. You're simply sharing your time and energy. That shift makes everything you say feel more natural, and it creates attraction without effort. The same principle applies in professional settings. During a job interview, a candidate who recites perfect answers but radiates anxiety won't inspire confidence. Meanwhile, someone who may not phrase everything flawlessly but brings energy that conveys competence and composure will often stand out more. Employers, clients, and colleagues respond to the way you make them feel, not just the information you present. That's why energy is such a powerful communicator. It bypasses logic and speaks directly to emotion. Energy isn't about being the loudest or the most charismatic in a traditional sense. Some of the most magnetic people are quiet, but their calm presence commands attention. Others radiate enthusiasm that makes everyone around them feel uplifted. What matters is not volume but alignment. Being in a state where your energy reflects confidence, joy, and authenticity. When that alignment is present, even the simplest words feel compelling. This is why working on your inner state is so critical. If you're constantly chasing validation, the energy you project will always carry a trace of fear or need. But when you validate yourself, when you know your worth independent of anyone else, you naturally project a different frequency. That energy communicates, I am enough, and it attracts people who want to be around someone who is secure in themselves. It's not something you fake. It's something you build through how you live, what you focus on, and the standards you hold for yourself. What people remember most is rarely the specifics of your words. They remember the impression you left, the feeling you gave them, the energy that lingered even after the conversation ended. Words can be rehearsed, but energy can't be disguised for long. It reveals what you truly believe about yourself. And when that belief is rooted in confidence and joy, attraction happens naturally, without force, without games, and without the exhausting act of chasing. Chasing often might be agreeing to things you don't want just to keep someone happy. It might be holding back your true thoughts, in fear they won't like you, if you're honest. Each of these behaviors communicates the same message. Your opinion of me matters more than my opinion of myself. And while people might not articulate it, they sense that energy. It feels needy, it feels heavy, and instead of pulling someone closer, it pushes them away. Attraction doesn't come from needing validation. It comes from already validating yourself. That means walking into a room knowing that your worth isn't on trial. You're not waiting for someone to give you a stamp of approval before you can feel confident. You've already given yourself that stamp. This doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you free. When you're not dependent on outside validation, you can be authentic. You can express your real opinions. You can set boundaries. You can show your quirks because you're not terrified of losing approval. That freedom makes you more attractive than any line or strategy ever could. Consider the difference between two people on a date. One person is hanging on every reaction, adjusting their behavior to win approval. If their joke doesn't land, they panic. If there's silence, they rush to fill it. They're performing, not connecting. The other person shows up genuinely. They share their stories without worrying about being perfect. If the silence comes, they're comfortable with it. They know that if the other person doesn't appreciate them, it simply means they're not the right match. That attitude radiates confidence. It says, I'd love for this to work out, but I'll be fine either way. The second person is far more magnetic, not because of what they said, but because they don't need external validation to feel okay. The same principle applies in careers. Imagine someone interviewing for a job. One candidate is desperate for the role, constantly checking if the interviewer approves, nervous about saying the wrong thing. That need for validation creates tension. The other candidate knows their skills, knows their value, and presents themselves without trying to prove anything. They're not afraid of rejection because they understand that if this isn't the right fit, another opportunity will come. That self-validation makes the second candidate stand out because people trust those who already trust themselves. When you stop chasing validation, you also stop settling. People who crave approval will accept less than they deserve just to feel wanted. They'll stay in relationships that don't nourish them. They'll take jobs that drain them. They'll compromise their values to keep someone else happy. But someone who validates themselves holds a different standard. They'd rather be alone than in a relationship that diminishes them. They'd rather wait for the right opportunity than grab the first one out of fear. That refusal to settle is magnetic because it communicates strength and self-respect. The irony is that when you stop needing validation, you often get more of it. People are drawn to those who don't seek their approval because it feels rare. Most people are used to others bending over backwards to be liked. When they meet someone who doesn't play that game, it feels refreshing. It sparks curiosity. It makes them want to earn your attention, not because you demanded it, but because your self-assurance invites them to rise to your level. Self-validation isn't about ignoring feedback or refusing to grow. It's about grounding your worth in something internal rather than external. It's saying, I know I'm enough as I am, and I'm open to learning and improving, but I don't need anyone else's approval to feel valuable. Qualities that are inherently magnetic. When you don't set boundaries, you send the signal that your value is negotiable. You end up saying yes when you mean no, tolerating behavior that makes you uncomfortable, or overextending yourself just to be liked. On the surface, it may look like you're being accommodating, but underneath, you're broadcasting that you don't fully respect yourself. People pick up on that. Some may take advantage of it, others may lose interest entirely, but almost no one feels truly inspired by it. Attraction requires admiration, and admiration is impossible without respect. By contrast, someone who sets boundaries communicates a powerful message without even needing to say much. I value myself enough to walk away if this isn't right. That energy is compelling because it shows independence. It tells others that you are in your life by choice, not by fear. People are naturally drawn to those who seem unafraid of losing them because it shows that their happiness is not dependent on external approval. That level of self-possession is rare, and rarity creates attraction. Think of relationships where one person constantly overcompensates. They give endlessly, overlook red flags, and put the other person's needs above their own just to keep the connection alive. At first, it might seem flattering to the other person, but over time it becomes suffocating. Without boundaries, the dynamic lacks balance, and what was once appealing starts to feel desperate. Now compare that to someone who loves generously, but also has clear limits. They can be warm and giving, but if they're disrespected, they're willing to walk away. That balance of kindness and strength is incredibly attractive. It inspires trust because it shows they won't lose themselves in the process of loving someone else. Boundaries also create clarity in communication. When you know what you will and won't accept, you don't play games. You don't need to manipulate or overthink because your actions are aligned with your values. That consistency is magnetic. People want to be around someone who knows themselves because it makes them feel secure. There is no confusion, no guessing game, just honesty and confidence. And in a world where so many interactions are clouded with uncertainty, that kind of clarity stands out. This applies not just in romantic relationships, but in every area of life. In a career, setting boundaries might look like saying no to a role that doesn't align with your goals, even if it seems like the safe option. It might be standing up for yourself in a meeting instead of staying silent. These choices may feel risky in the short term, but they send a message you know your worth. Employers, colleagues, and clients respect those who set boundaries because they sense they're dealing with someone who won't be easily exploited. That respect often translates into greater opportunities because people want to work with those who project strength. The irony of boundaries is that the very thing people fear, that setting them will push others away, actually has the opposite effect. Yes, weak connections may fall apart when you assert your boundaries, but that's not loss, that's clarity. The people who truly value you will respect your standards and lean in closer. Boundaries filter out those who don't belong in your life and amplify your magnetism to those who do. Attraction isn't about being endlessly available or constantly accommodating. It's about being grounded enough in your worth to offer love and connection without sacrificing yourself. Boundaries allow you to do exactly that. They create space for mutual respect, for genuine admiration, and for a balance of giving and receiving. Without them, you risk becoming invisible, but with them, to tell because they're actively living life. They're engaged in their passions, curious about the world, and committed to growing. When you invest in becoming that kind of person, attraction follows you like a shadow. You don't need to force it. There's something compelling about someone who is clearly fulfilled on their own. They don't walk into a room searching for someone to complete them. They're already complete, and their energy says, "You're welcome to join me, but I don't need you to validate me." That independence is attractive because it creates freedom for others. Instead of feeling pressure to constantly reassure or provide happiness, people feel inspired to simply enjoy the connection. Fulfillment also creates confidence. When you're actively building a life that excites you, you don't feel the same desperation to be chosen. You know you bring value because you've invested in yourself. That self-assurance is magnetic. It shows up in subtle ways: how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you handle setbacks. People can sense when you're grounded in something deeper than external validation. It makes them want to be a part of your world. Growth is another part of being irresistible. No one is drawn to stagnation. Attraction happens when there's momentum, when someone is evolving and striving for more. You don't have to be perfect, but you do need to be in motion. A person who is constantly learning, taking risks, and building themselves naturally draws attention because growth is inspiring. It signals ambition, vitality, and resilience, all qualities that create admiration and desire. Joy might be the most magnetic quality of all. When you genuinely enjoy your life, when you find happiness in your passions, relationships, and daily experiences, that joy radiates outward. It's contagious. People want to be near it because it lifts them up. In contrast, if you're constantly negative, bitter, or drained, it repels. Attraction has less to do with how you look and more to do with how people feel in your presence. Joy makes people feel lighter, and that is irresistible. Purpose ties it all together. When you live with a sense of direction, even if you're still figuring it out, people can feel it. Purpose gives you a certain focus, a drive that makes you stand out. It shows that your life is about more than just being liked. It's about contributing, creating, and leaving an impact. That kind of energy is compelling because it adds depth to who you are. Attraction isn't just about surface qualities, it's about substance. Purpose provides that substance. Investing in yourself also means holding standards. When you value your growth, joy, and purpose, you naturally expect others to align with that. You don't waste time on relationships or opportunities that diminish you. This selectiveness doesn't make you difficult, it makes you magnetic. People sense when they're in the presence of someone who won't settle for less than they deserve, and it challenges them to rise to that level. Becoming irresistible is not about performing for others. It's about becoming fully alive in your own life. It's about building a version of yourself that excites you, that you're proud of, that radiates energy without needing to beg for attention. When you do that, attraction takes care of itself. The right people, the right opportunities, and the right experiences naturally gravitate toward you, not because you chased them, but because you became someone they couldn't ignore. Chasing is exhausting. It drains your energy, it erodes your confidence, and it keeps you stuck in a cycle of proving instead of living. But when you shift from chasing to attracting, everything changes. You begin to live with an abundant mindset,